Entering his first NBA season, Nets rookie and the 8th overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft, Egor Demin comes into Brooklyn with a ton to prove in his rookie year. What to expect out of him and the rest of the squad in the 2025 season, and joined by the great Spen Harris of Spenny on Nets. On your way into the building, make sure you click like, click subscribe. It helps us grow a ton right here on the show. This is a live edition of the Brooklyn Boys Show streaming on YouTube. Appreciate you all tuning in. Smash like and hit subscribe, but more importantly, head over to the comment section, throw questions, comments, thoughts right there for Spen and I to react to in just a couple of moments. Mr. Spen Harris, host of the Spenny and the Nets show. We appreciate you coming on the show, sparing a little bit of your time. How you doing?
I'm doing well. A lot to be grateful for as a Nets fan. Maybe not right now, but in my 25 plus years of fandom, a decent amount to be grateful for.
Amen. I mean, it has been a roller coaster to say the least. I've only been a Nets fan. Began back in 2017 or so. The Rondé Hollis, Jefferson, Allen Crabbe days. Joe Harris was my favorite Net for a little while. So it's been a roller coaster in just my short time watching the Nets. I'm sure your in-depth fandom can go a long way here. And if you haven't yet, go check out Spen's stuff. Links are both in the description. We got his Twitter and his YouTube stuff in there. So hit him up there. Spenny and the Nets YouTube channel. He does a great job over there. Great job. He voices his thoughts to over 6,000 subscribers on Twitter. So we appreciate you joining us. And I guess where I'll start is the man of the hour, the man of the show here. It's Egor Demin. And when the Nets brought him in, they were looking for a guy to facilitate this offense for the future. A guy that's going to come in here and play the point guard spot, run the one for Jordy Fernandez's system. And you saw what he did at BYU. And yes, he was a great passer there, and maybe the three-point percentage bothers you a little bit, and he didn't play the best against high-level opponents. But you showed flashes of brilliance in your time at BYU and in your basketball career. Spend just a quick overview from what you're seeing. What can Nets fans expect from Egor Demin now and sort of in the future down the line?
Yeah, I think they can expect sort of a similar scenario that we saw at BYU. You want to see flashes from this kid. He was taken 8th overall, kind of in a pick that a lot of people didn't expect. And a lot of Nets fans were frankly disappointed with the pick, but obviously there's something that Sean Marks and the scouting department saw that the casual fan didn't. That's why they're paid the big bucks, and that's what we have to pay to go to basketball games. So for me, look, I think that his ceiling is very high. Out of all the 5 Nets draft picks, he has the highest ceiling. He does have a low floor. I mean, there is a chance he can be kind of just a relatively above average role player. I think that's kind of his floor if he becomes a 3-and-D shooter. Yeah. But that's not why the Nets drafted him at 8th. They drafted him for his playmaking ability, his high IQ, and the fact that, before his season at BYU, he was a really good 3-point shooter and he was a great all-around scorer.
Yeah, and I think injuries probably played a part in that. You look at just the stats in his season at BYU, they're not extremely compelling. Nothing jumps off the sheet. Nothing tells you the 8th overall pick and right there knocking on the doorstep of the top half of the lottery in such a loaded draft. But you look at what he can be. To me, he's got to develop as a 3-point shooter. That catch and shoot, if he can come out firing, we've seen flashes of that, you're right, but now he's got to sort of develop into someone who solidified his role, because if you continue to see flashes, this is just a scenario where, you're looking at a guy with a ton of potential, and maybe he could have been something had his NBA career worked out in the right way, but I feel like we say that far too often when it's just a lot of talk about what a guy could have been, but not enough talk about how the coaches developed him, how when he got into the league, he adjusted to that level. And it's so interesting for a Brooklyn Nets team that's, excuse me, I didn't mean to hit the mic there. So interesting for a Nets team that is going to probably be right around the 20 win mark. How does a guy sort of hop into the league and pick up in a not good system, but still show you the consistency and sort of get to that level where he can continue to progress in that next season?
Well, I think that he's going to have his fair share of opportunities because of the way that this roster is constructed. Who are
Right.
guys that are you can confidently say are better scorers than Egor Demin? Cam Thomas, Michael Porter Jr., end of list, kind of. So
Yep.
he is going to have his fair share of opportunities, whether that's at the one, whether that's at the three. Remember, this is a player who's 6'8", and he
Right.
could be a guard or he can be sort of a point forward, as we've seen around the league a little bit. You think of a guy, very different style, but you think of a point forward like a Scotty Barnes. He's more of a power forward point guard hybrid. Egor Demin would be more of like a small forward point guard hybrid. But I think that, Jordi Fernandez, in his limited time as a coach, we've seen him develop some young talent within Nets. And we've seen some guys who maybe didn't shine elsewhere shine
Right.
under Jordi Fernandez. I'm thinking about Zaire Williams. I'm thinking about
Top
Keon
of my
Johnson.
list as well.
Jordy's brought the best out of these guys. So
Right.
why can't he do it with Egor Demin? I can see him running that second unit a lot of the times with Nolan Traore as well, kind of filling in that point guard role. But yeah, if there's ever a good time for a rookie to kind of showcase what they can do, it's when they're on a relatively bad roster.
Okay, so you have it as he should be able to make the plays with no depth behind him rather than it's going to be tough for him to make plays when defenses can sort of hone in on him and he doesn't have a ton of, threats around him. That's such an interesting debate to have. And I think we could go back and forth all day on that. But Spen, you make an awesome point, right? Like Jordi Fernandez in 1 year of coaching showed us enough to the point where we're confident he can develop guys that we've never seen in the NBA. Zaire Williams, a former late lottery pick that was basically forgotten on the streets in Memphis, comes into Brooklyn and, just a couple days ago, officially inked that 2 year, $12 million contract with he got that dough on him now with a team option on the second year. So congrats to Zaire. Payday is well deserved. A guy that I think it provides a ton of defensive versatility, can hit a couple threes for you when you need him to on the offensive end. So we've already seen it from Jordi Fernandez. You're right. For Egor Demin, you mentioned his 6'8" size. But in the summer league, a guy that truly honed in on the three ball. Like, I, I think he only took what was it? It was some absurd stat. Like he only took one shot that wasn't a 3-pointer in the summer league or something, and that was a tomahawk hammer jam on a flyby dunk or something like that on the fast break. So I think he showed a tremendous amount of athleticism in the summer league, something that I'm sure Sean Marks is high on, and that's the basis of developing talent right there. But also the ability to shoot the three. We saw him can threes, not only catch and shoot, but you heard him on the Nets Gen show that they did, which was an awesome listen. He felt he was being disrespected that guys were going under threes. They were, who was it? Danny Wolf maybe was coming up to the top to set screens, and his defender would go under. He's like, what is he doing? I'm just going to shoot this three from whatever, 5 feet behind the line. And that's the type of confidence you love to see expressed so early on into a young player's career before he even hit training camp of his first year. Just a ton to be excited about from him for the summer league. And I was personally a guy that was not on board the Egor train when the draft pick got announced. I was looking at guys like Kuman Malawach, like Noah Asenge, that I thought would have been a much better fit for the Nets and had more potential. I was shocked. I will tell you, I was personally pissed at the pick. But I've caught it's grown on me to the point I truly see the potential. I truly see the vision of getting to the point, go to the future, spend. Where were you when this pick originally got announced? Were your initial emotions as were mine? And has thoughts sort of changed as what we saw in the summer? And what do you think can change if a good training camp occurs?
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily upset. I was shocked. I wasn't in love with the two guys that you mentioned. The center from Duke and then Noah
Yeah, not
Senge. I
really.
wasn't in love with either of those guys, but at the same time, I wanted who went to the Wizards, the point guard
Yes,
from
Trey
Oklahoma.
Johnson. Trey Johnson. Oh man, of course I wanted Trey Johnson. And I
Trey
thought a trade
Johnson went
up
to
would have made
Washington.
sense.
I was thinking of Jeremiah Fears.
Jeremiah Fears out of Oklahoma. That's another
So
great
that
option.
was
Draft was filled with
that was
them.
the guy that I wanted before the draft, and I thought he would fall to the Nets at 8. I think he got taken what, sixth, and then seventh
7.
was
No,
Trey
Trey
Johnson.
Trey Johnson was 6 to Washington.
Okay, so Fears was 7.
Yes.
So I
Let me
just
double check.
at that point, the both the guys I kind of wanted the Nets to take were gone. Like I said, I wasn't in love with it. So they take Yoiman, and I was shocked. I have a
Yes, Fears
friend.
7 to the Pelicans. Sorry to interrupt. Johnson 6 to the Wizards. We got it.
Perfect. Okay. So I had a friend who follows BYU sports programs, football and basketball, very
Yeah.
closely. He has a friend who went to BYU who's an alumni, and he told me the Nets got a good one in Egor Demin. And
Okay.
the thing is, the guy played one season at BYU. It's hard to look at that and say, well, because he didn't shoot the three well, and he wasn't the best scorer, and his stats weren't super gaudy, he's not going to be a good NBA player. I think that's unfair. I think that, Marks and this Nets scouting department, they drafted him based on what they saw before he was at BYU, what he did at BYU, and they took this kid more or less based on intangibles that I think the casual fan couldn't see. That's what they're trying to sell us on. That's what I'm buying. And not to mention, I mean, he does seem like a natural born leader in some sense. You saw the way he carried himself during the summer league, the
Yep.
way he's spoken to the media. He seems like a rookie that's mature beyond his years. So,
Yes.
yeah, I hope that most Nets fans who were upset with the pick were wrong. I hope that Marks and this Nets scouting department was right. But I would say shocked, and I've definitely, like you, I've kind of grown to like the pick.
To be honest, you took the words right out of my mouth. The way he conducted himself in the summer league, the way he was a leader on the court, and not even his first NBA action. Literally before that, a month removed, maybe a month and a half removed from being selected in Brooklyn in person on NBA draft night to the Brooklyn Nets, of course. To go out there, show the leadership and accountability he did. He was encouraging teammates, telling them, let's go, let's play team basketball. Just that's the signs of leaders. And to have him show that evidently at such a young age means so much to me. And obviously, the point guard's the facilitator on the court, they like to say, the coach of the court in terms of players. But he truly did. He truly did show that in the summer league, and it's not just Sean Marks talking about it. It's anyone could sit up at a podium anywhere and say why they like the pick, but to see it with our own eyes in 5 summer league games before his first training camp, that meant a lot.
Yeah, and he wants to put on some muscle, because if we notice anything in summer league, he's a little skinny.
Yep. He's not huge. Awesome LA is asking, did you see Yegor's workout photos? Appreciate
I
you
did.
tuning in, Awesome LA. He's lifting pretty heavy there. I gotta say, I am not up to par with Egor Demin's. I'm not there yet. That's all I'll say.
I saw a few of the videos. It looks like he recognized the weakness in just himself physically, and the NBA, you need to have some muscle on you.
Yes.
So I like where his head's at. I like that he kind of said that out loud to everyone listening, and yeah, that's a really nice start to come into the league and say, okay, where do I have to get better? I'm a little frail. Let me put on some muscle. Let me post some sick workout vids of me just getting yoked.
Amen. Amen. And we'll see if it all comes to fruition. But if he wants to be a guard that uses a 6'8" size advantage to his advantage, you got to be able to finish through contact against defenders. That's something he certainly put a huge emphasis on. anybody could shoot the three, but if you're just one-dimensional from beyond the arc, teams are going to figure out how to close in on you pretty quickly. So if you get that muscle, that confidence, that quickness is another part of it. Not only your size, but you got to be able to get a huge burst off the dribble. You got to be able to have a little bit of bag in terms of handles and ball skills. So there's a lot that goes into a physical point guard being able to drive to the hoop. But sure looks like Egor Demin's trying to cook up his own recipe there in terms of getting himself stronger, hopefully acquitted to the NBA season. We've talked a lot about it, Egor Demin, what he could be, what he can't be. But let's look at what this upcoming season looks like, because as crazy as it sounds, Spen, uh, some mock rookie of the year predictions have come out, and a dark horse is the number 8 overall pick, Egor Demin, in what is such a stacked class, which honestly is probably going to see Cooper Flagg run away with this, barring any injuries or something. But behind that, there's also the list doesn't stop per se. There's Ace Bailey. We just mentioned Trey Johnson, Jeremiah Fears, is Ace's Rutgers teammate Dylan Harper, another headline on the list. Egor Demin, how did he find his way into this conversation?
Look, I think, like I said earlier, it's about opportunity, right? You look at the number. So Cooper Flagg could have a great season. He could.
For sure.
But he's on a pretty good roster with guys like Kyrie when true. Kyrie comes back, and Anthony Davis and PJ Wash. So
he's not going to get full reins off the rip.
That's what I'm saying. His statistics might not be rookie of the year worthy. And Dylan Harper, again, Spurs. He's playing with Victor Wembanyama. Stephon Castle, there's some De'Aaron Fox, there's some other guys on that roster. As good as Dylan Harper and Cooper Flagg are they going to be able to put up ROI numbers? So a guy like Trey Johnson on the Wizards, who don't really have a superstar, their best player is Jordan Poole. I'm sorry, he just got traded. Now I don't even know. It's CJ McCollum. So a guy like Trey Johnson will
Chris Middleton.
Chris Middleton, exactly. A guy like Jeremiah Fears on a Pelicans team where Zion's in and out of the lineup, he's going to have opportunities. Ace Bailey in Utah. I think that the guys who are
in Charlotte.
Exactly. Con Knipple in Charlotte. These guys that are on bad NBA teams who are going to get the rock a lot, put up high volume numbers. So I give Egor Demin, if he's going to start on this roster, I do give him a decent shot to win Rookie of the Year.
That's awfully confident. But there's no doubt he'll have the opportunity. Who else is competing with him for the starting one? I think that we'll get into the Cam Thomas situation that completely shakes up what happens at the 2. And I'll pick your brain on that in just a little bit. But I would think that they actually want Traore as a 2. I would think that Ben Saraf plays a majority of this season on Long Island. Drake Powell's probably going to be at the 3. Danny Wolf obviously not in the conversation. So Egor Demin could easily be getting 30 plus a night on the court in terms of minutes. And I don't think that's a ridiculous statement. So he will certainly have the bulk of time to be out there on the court performing well. The question becomes, it's now a race of, who can develop the fastest, who's the most NBA fit, who's a guy that can come in here and succeed, albeit it'll be a bad Brooklyn Nets team, but that's not to say at all that individual performances can't be great. We saw it on a team last year that was started off the season so well, they had to basically hit the emergency sell at the before the deadline because this team was on pace to be a play-in team. So you traded away DFS, you traded away Dennis Schroeder. I'm happy they kept Zaire Williams, a guy who can actually have a future with this Brooklyn team. But you trade away some pieces, and then it continues in the offseason. Cam Johnson, obviously, you end up taking on MPJ's contract, which we could get into. But you overall downgrade as a team. But that's all just to say that there was individual success on this roster. I think a lot of that credit needs to go to Jordi Fernandez. Is a great coach, first time head coach in the league. But there has been individual success on this Brooklyn Nets team. Can Egor Demin become the next player to slide right into that role.
I think so. What was interesting about last season was the Nets did not have a lot of young talent on the roster.
And no
And one of
picks.
the guys, and right, they had no picks. And one of the guys who was able to kind of shine in moments under Jordy Fernandez was Noah Clowney. And
Yep. Yes.
that I think for me, when Noah Clowney would do something well on the court, that was the most excited I got as a Nets fan because look, Dennis Schroeder can make all the great plays to win us games in the beginning of the season. I knew our peak with Dennis Schroeder as our best player was not high. And
Yep.
as consistent as Cam Johnson was in his best season as an NBA pro last year, I knew that the future of the Nets, it wasn't going to be on Cam Johnson's shoulders. So for me, as a fan who knows that this team isn't going to be a potential contender for 2 or 3 years, I want to see that young talent. It was nice to see Noah Clowney develop last year and get better beyond the arc and a little bit more confident in his offensive game. It's going to be really nice to see Egor Demin, Nolan Traore, Sharaf, Danny Wolf, and then eventually Drake Powell when he's back from injury. It's going to be nice to see these guys get action on the NBA court because that's what Nets fans have kind of been missing is this future glimpse at everyone. So, yeah, to answer your question, I think Jordy Fernandez is the perfect coach for a guy like Egor Demin to come in, get comfortable, and show us why the Nets took him number 8 overall.
Absolutely. You mentioned a couple key pieces that led to last year's sort of a little bit of a an uptick in production. You would think in the win column when it was least expected, and I think the most important part of last year was that you gave away both of your picks last season, and there was no one to develop, so you were stuck in no man's land. Obviously, the Nets had already moved on from Bridges. They had begun that phase of the rebuild. They were already in the post, big three tear it down stage. So they weren't going to win any basketball games. But Jordy Fernandez found a way to scrap out a couple and just make this team competitive night in and night out. Like you think back to the Houston Rockets game where they score 6 points in 8 seconds to take the lead. I mean, that was the most excited I got as a Nets fan last year. That game was awesome, man. And I knew the season was freaking over, and I knew I wanted a good pick, but like just moments like that make you smile as a Nets fan. So, look, Nets fans, this isn't going to be a fun year in terms of if you want to go to the Barclays Center to see a win, this probably isn't your season. If you want to go to the Barclays Center to see a contending team, this probably isn't your season. But best believe we will see some good development. We'll see some learning experiences. I'm not gonna deny that. We certainly will. I think on and off the court, specifically some people that have been headlining the news recently. But yes, overall, this will still, no matter what, be a fun net season. Is the point I'm trying to get at. But lastly, before we put a bow on this Egor Demin section, which has been pretty awesome, it's been a great discussion. Do you have specific predictions? Obviously, I hope he stays healthy. That doesn't mean necessarily that he is starting every single game. I would be surprised if he's not. But post trade deadline, you're talking March, April, way meaningless basketball games, and this Nets team, frankly, is not going to want to win. I could certainly see someone like Traore getting the start at the point guard spot. Maybe Egor is backing up at the 3 or something. Jordy's just sort of testing out the waters for next season. But Egor will have his fair run. So is this a guy that can, average close to the 20s in points per game, or is he going to focus more on the assists and try and catch up there later, hang around the single digits?
So my stat line prediction for Egor Demin would be I can see him scoring about 14, 15 points per game in that
Yep.
range. Let's say 6 assists and
Yep.
5 or 6 rebounds. So he's a few statistics off a triple double, but yeah, let's say 15, 6, and 6. Let's call it that.
I'd have no issues for a rookie campaign like that. If he stays healthy and he's playing the whole year, a rookie campaign of 15, 6, and 6. I'd prefer that assist total to be higher, a little closer to 8. But that might be a little too much to ask just the instant he comes into the league. So let's hope he stays healthy. Let's hope that Egor Demin has a great year. Smash the like and hit subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Joined by the great Spen Harris of Spenny and Nets. His links are in the description below. You can check out his Twitter. You can check out his YouTube. Follow him. Subscribe to him on those platforms. We appreciate you all in the chat. BC says, go Lakers. As always, we hate it. Leaf Diggy in the chat. Salute all. You're the best. You guys are the best. So continue to hit like, continue to hit subscribe. Best way to help us grow right here is completely free. Helps us grow a ton. But more importantly, your interaction also means a ton. Hit up the comment section like a couple of our friends have done already. Throw questions, comments, thoughts, reactions to what Spenny and I have to say. We'll react to those in just a little while. You have the chat line is open. So whatever you want to say, we will throw that in here. And speaking of just throwing things in here for the fun of it, I kind of like to gauge the temperature when I have a guest on. ESPN has recently said that Trae Young might not be on the best terms with the Atlanta Hawks. Is this a guy the Nets could pursue next offseason with all the cap they have?
Yeah, the only way I want Trae Young is in Brooklyn is if Giannis Antetokounmpo joins him.
Wow, that is a super team and a half. Giannis and Trae Young. My goodness. Please explain.
I think that Trae by himself doesn't do much for me. We've seen it in Atlanta all these years. He's had a few decent playoff series. Obviously, he sent the Knicks home from the playoffs that one year. That was great. Rolling dice at the center of Madison Square Garden. I mean, as a Nets fan, you had to love to see it. But Trae Young is an undersized point guard, obviously a liability on defense. He kind of needs the perfect team around him. If you had a bully on the court like Giannis, and like you mentioned, Josh, the Nets have this cap room. They could potentially go out and get Giannis. They have enough future draft capital and young draft picks. I'm sorry, just young players in general. They can move to get Giannis. I would want to see, like, if you get Trae and get Giannis, if you can keep Egor Demin on this team. I think at that point, Nolan Traore becomes expendable because him and Trae Young are very similar in terms of quick, undersized guards. Although I think Nolan Traore is 6'3", 6'4", so I don't think he's super undersized. But I would absolutely be interested in Trae Young if you're able to get Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's the only way.
I mean, look, we've seen this story play out before. I wasn't a huge Nets fan for it, but Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, that turned into a shit show pretty quickly where the Nets, lost the worst team in the league. You don't get the pick. Boston gets it. Just the worst days of being a Nets fan. When Katie and Kyrie both initially signed before the Harden trade, I thought this Nets team would win 3 championships in a row. And I was sold on it. There's no way they don't. Katie and Kyrie, the legends of me growing up. You add James Harden in there. You have 3 NBA 75 members all on one squad, all at once. The 2021 Brooklyn Nets were destined to win it all. It just shattered right in front of us. And look, you just drafted 5 rookies. I think Sean Marks' career depends on if Egor Demin works out. Maybe they give him the 2026 pick. But look, I mean, I'm not sure if Joe Tsai knows it or not. Maybe we need to wake him up a little bit, alert him that he kind of owns a basketball team and he gets to manage it. But Sean Marks should have the hottest hot seat in the NBA. He should. He's messed up so much. We've given him so many extra tries. He had 5 first-round picks this year. Couldn't bother moving up with it in one of the best draft classes ever. And it might be a little early to say that, but I'll say it. He's got the hottest hot seat in the NBA. For him to go out there, completely disregard the tank 2 years into it, and you're pairing AJ DeBansta, Egor Demin, AJ DeBansta, Cam Boozer, whatever. Pick your poison. Darren Peterson, love them all. AJ DeBansta is a filler. Yegor Demin, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Trae Young. I can't possibly imagine like a world in which A, the Nets are able to pull this off, and B, to me, this doesn't feel like what this team direction is. This doesn't feel like a Jordy Fernandez system. To me, I think Jordy wants to develop a rookie, get an extremely high quality guy in the building, and literally try and build a championship the way the Thunder did. Acquire as many picks as possible, take as many players as possible. The best ones stay. We build a championship that way. Um, I just I just can't imagine the Nets and Sean Marks diving headfirst right back into the deep end of the superstar pool 4 years removed from it completely falling flat on its face.
I think you're right. I agree with you. I want to go that route as well. But if you were going to bring in Trae Young, just Trae Young would underwhelm me. Now,
Yes. I mean, is it a
yeah,
hot take to say, I don't know if this is a play-in team? If you just insert Trae Young onto the roster, I don't think this team makes the play. This is the
yeah, no,
bottom 10 team in the league.
I agree with you. I mean, how
Trae Young
much?
does not do that much. He adds you
How much?
27 a night. He jacks up threes. What he can do is take away from the development of your rookies. That's for sure.
You look at what Dennis Schroeder did in the beginning of last season, how the Nets, won way more games than anticipated.
Yeah.
He was playing incredible. How much better, or how many more wins do you get with Trae Young than Dennis Schroeder? Obviously, Trae Young is a better player. I'm not saying he's not, but it's the same concept, right? So, yeah, I if you're the Nets and you're not going to do that, you're not going to just dive back into the superstar waters. Don't acquire Trae Young next year. Continue with the rebuild. You're absolutely right. Go get that a top 3 pick, and continue building out this young roster.
Amen. And it's so interesting because you put Trae Young on this team, and likely he's not going to just work out. It's the situation where if you want to have a championship roster, and the Nets will tell you this, they learned it firsthand after a disastrous big three failed for the second time in the Brooklyn era. If you want to build a championship team, you can't just do the copy and paste button on your keyboard and start inserting superstars into a lineup with no depth, with nobody around them. Like LaMarcus Aldridge at the center spot, who bless his heart had to retire because of like a heart condition. Andre Drummond was a insert at some point during the Seth Curry sort of weird, sticky, stuck in the middle era. This Nets team did not have a championship winning roster outside their superstars. Their game plan was just pass the ball to KD. He'll chuck up a shot, and sometimes it'll get us 91 points the first half.
Yeah, no, it was fun basketball. Was it team basketball? I don't know about that.
It probably was not. It probably was not. Appreciate you all tuning in. Smash the like and hit subscribe. You guys are the best. King Rebby in the building, Claude in the building. We'll get to all your questions in just a little second here. We kind of mentioned a little bit how Jordy Fernandez's system isn't built for shot chucking, them first guards. It's more of a team effort, especially here in the rebuild. I kind of know a guy who fits the description, and he may or may not have just signed a qualifying offer to return to the team for this season. Of course, I'm talking Cam Thomas here. The poster child of the Nets offseason in the worst way possible when things all went south when him and Sean Marks spoiled the future of the two's relationship. You know the whole story. I don't need to explain it. They could have had a contract in June, and here it was September, whatever, early September, when they finally decided that the toddler fighting was over and Cam Thomas would take the qualifying offer. But what I'm trying to get at here is there's 3 possible avenues that this could go down. Number 1, Cam Thomas gets traded, preferably before media day, so that a bad first half doesn't tank his trade stock or another injury, which would be both, tragic for the Nets and his trade stock and Cam Thomas and his future in the NBA. So if you want to trade him, hopefully it happens before the season starts. Option number 2, the Brooklyn Nets treat Cam Thomas like a piece of garbage. He wasn't willing to sign their quote unquote best offer. Um, he basically said to their faces, I have no interest in continuing my relationship with you as a franchise. Um, I am going to take the qualifying offer, hit unrestricted free agency, and get the heck out of Brooklyn as fast as I can. So I can just blatantly disrespect him. Jordy can say I'd rather develop the rookies than see you on the court. Or option number three is that the Nets do the opposite. They try to win as many games as possible because if there's anyone on this roster that, can score the basketball at times, it's definitely Cam Thomas, a guy, one of the few in the NBA who has the physical ability to score from any time at any point. And the Nets play him 25 minutes a night, impedes the development of the rookies, and this Nets team is basically screwed because they're in another year of stuck in the middle where they try too hard to play the people who aren't going to be around long term. How do you hope it plays out? How do you think it'll play out? Two very different questions there. And what do you think the end result is in Cam Thomas at Brooklyn?
Yeah, I hope I hope how it plays out. I hope they trade him before the season starts. Um,
Yes.
I think that for me as a fan would be the best decision because you're going to lose a lot more games without Cam Thomas. You'll get more looks at Traore, at Joyman, at Ben Sharaf without Cam Thomas, and it'll be more of a team oriented. You'll probably still see MPJ be the leading scorer on the team and the shot chucker, but other than him, I think you'll see a lot more young faces without Cam Thomas kind of taking the ball out of a lot of these young guys' hands. Now, how I think it's going to play out, I think they're going to play him, and then they're going to trade him before the trade deadline.
Okay. Try and
But
raise that stock a little bit.
try and raise that stock. But Josh, the issue is he has to agree to the team that they traded him to. They can't just
Yes, he
trade
has
him.
the no trade clause, of course. You can't just ship him off to
Right.
Charlotte, tell him go shit yourself in another lottery team, hope to never see you again. He has all the veto power, and Cam Thomas thought it was that important to have trade veto power that he turned down in $9.5 million guaranteed and up to 11 in incentives without the trade veto, and then another 2 years for 30, so 15 a year. So you're talking about doubling your money, and he thought a no trade clause and the ability to waive any trade is more important than double his salary. You're talking about a guy that could not have a much longer future in the league, and he's that keen, or at least his representative agency is, on doing like in screwing over Brooklyn. That's got to be concerning.
Yeah, I mean, wherever you're thinking of sending him, make sure you get his sign off on that first. I think Cam Thomas is a really talented player. I think he's one of the best scorers to don a Brooklyn Nets jersey outside of the KDs, the Kyries, the James Hardens. But for me, the second that the Nets decided to go this rebuild route, I just never thought that he was someone Sean Marks wanted in the Nets' future. That just seemed really evident when McHale and Cam Johnson came over and they kind of made them the two faces of the franchise. And then McHale leaves, and all of a sudden it's Dennis Schroeder, it's Cam Johnson. It just never really felt like the Nets wanted to go and give Cam Thomas the keys to this organization. And, this offseason was very telling. I just don't think they value him the way that him and his representation values him. And it'll be nice to see him thrive elsewhere. And it's just tough, when you draft someone in the first round like the Nets did with Cam Thomas, and he's been there for 4 seasons, it's tough to kind of see it potentially end this way.
It's to me, Sean Marks is a very particular guy. I say this a lot on the show, but in the way he treated Nick Claxton compared to the way he treats Cam Thomas, it's just so telling by the fact of how much he values them. You're right, Spen. It was a ring around of Rosie of guys who Sean Marks would rather have in the building than Cam Thomas. He just didn't want to admit it. And when it came to the time for Cam to get a second contract, your former first round pick, in top 20's pick, Cam Thomas told you how he felt loud and clear. Quote, it was just straight disrespectful in Cam's perspective. So Sean Marks, on the contrary, takes a guy like Nick Claxton and basically refuses to trade him at a point where that's probably the most expendable guy on your team. Just signed a 4-year, $100 million contract an offseason ago. He is, you know, one of the league's best shot blockers and could truly find a home on a contending team elsewhere. And you could certainly get value back for him. Like, for example, a huge name in that headline would probably be the Los Angeles Lakers. And, you could get back a Dalton Connect in a first round pick for a guy like Nick Claxton. Sean Marks is kind of playing big brother here and, kind of sealing him off from the outside media. Like, he wants nothing to do with the Nick Claxton trade rumors. It's immediately off the table, and we're not doing that. It's, why would we think about trading him? Like, dude, he's your most expendable player, and he was on the decline significantly last year. There's a chance that could you give Day'Ron Sharpe the rings of the center spot? He could be your future center, and I'm a strong believer in Day'Ron Sharpe. We could certainly get into this, but like, Sean Marks loves Nick Claxton in a way that doesn't compare to how he feels about Cam Thomas.
I think it's a great point. I think he's very particular with certain players. I couldn't agree more. How much better is Nick Claxton than Day'Ron Sharpe? The answer is minimally, and Day'Ron Sharpe's closing in on that gap pretty darn quickly. So
Right.
yeah. I mean, look, Cam Thomas. You look at his stats. I mean, 24 points a game in the 2024-25 season, 22 and a half points per game the season before that, and then not as much, obviously, playing with the big three and Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a guy that if you didn't know the story and you looked at his stats, you would think that the Nets would want to pay him to be a Brooklyn Net for life. And that just hasn't been the case. You're right. Sean Marks is very particular with the players that he prefers, with the guys he likes to dole out contracts to. And Cam Thomas just isn't on his love list.
It's like shockingly interesting. I have no clue he figures the stuff out, and hopefully he likes Egor Demin or he likes a couple of the guys he just spent 5 first round picks on. But who knows? Because you're right, Spen. You would have thought 2 years ago, I right after he inked his 4-year, $100 million contract, and right before the season that really begun his decline in most Nets fan views of Nick Claxton, I bought a Nick Claxton jersey, and at that time, it was a Nick Claxton or Cam Thomas jersey, and well, I went with Nick Claxton because he just inked a fresh contract, and Cam Thomas was due for a extension coming up next year. It's like, oh, sure, I'm sure, I'm still growing, so I'll probably have another Nets jersey in me at some point in my high school years, and whatever. Nick Claxton feels like the best fit for now. He just inked a 4-year deal, but I am sure, 100%, Cam Thomas will be back on this team, no problem. Priority number 1 for the Brooklyn Nets. And what would be the problem, right? A guy that can score from anywhere on the turns out he is a cone on defense. Turns out he doesn't really love to pass. It's not his mojo. And he can shot chuck with the best of them. But that doesn't like Trae Young, that doesn't equivalent to team success. So a ton to I guess we'll never know what actually happened behind closed doors in the Cam Thomas discussion, but so interesting. And what Sean Marks approached him, did he just bluntly tell him, we don't think you're good enough to get the money, you think you deserve that? That's an interesting idea. Maybe when Cam Thomas leaves the Nets and he has no more allegiance to the squad, he may reveal. But Spen, I know that we talked a little bit about this backstage. Feel free to jump at any time if you need to, as we're already 45 minutes down, but a ton to discuss about. So if you're here for it, we can get into a couple chats and a couple more talking points. You got some more time out for us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. We really do appreciate that. So if you have questions for us, you can throw that in the chat. You guys are the best. This roster is, despite it being cut down, slimmed down a little bit, there are still, a couple more spots that, certainly nothing solidified yet here by the end of training camp, and the Nets are actually going to have to submit their roster, and this is something that we will have to keep an eye out for throughout the preseason. But the Nets picked up 4 team options this year, and Timmy, Johnson, Wilson, and Keon Johnson, Jalen Wilson, Drew Timmy, and Tyrese Martin. My goodness. In my mind, there's no way all four of those guys make the team, but the Nets still do need to spend a little bit more roster money before they hit the floor. To me, Timmy is the only lock there. And then next up, I would probably go Keon Johnson, who I know you mentioned a little bit about. Are you high on the other guys at all? Or, is Keon Johnson a guy that you certainly have on this team? Or where are you looking at those guys?
Out of those four guys, I agree with you. Timmy has a lot of promise as a big man in the NBA. He's got a really nice touch around the rim. He can hit the mid-range shot. He was really fun to watch in summer league, and he was arguably the Nets' best player.
Sure.
In terms of a second guy, it's tough. Keon Johnson is probably the best scorer out of those three, but he's a bit undersized, and you have a few undersized guys on this team.
Yeah.
Jalen Wilson's offensive game just hasn't developed like you wanted to see
Doesn't do enough for me, yeah.
Streaky shooter at best, average defender. And then Tyrese.
To me, what I like to say about Jalen Wilson, he can't do anything that the guys around him can't do. He doesn't provide you anything special. In the NBA, if you want to make it and make it far, you got to be unique. You have to stand out from the pack. Jalen Wilson quite literally does the opposite. He is always in someone's shadow. I guess the only time he wasn't is when he won the Summer League MVP. But what does Jalen Wilson do that everyone else that plays, is whatever, an undersized two guard or maybe a small forward that doesn't do? Nothing. So.
Yeah, and then Tyrese Martin, just not enough. He hasn't shown me enough in his tenure with the Brooklyn Nets. He's had moments, that Phoenix Suns game a few years ago where he went off. But no,
that was just this past season, right? Yeah.
Was that this past season?
Yeah, and then they converted his two-way to a standard. I think they had room because Bojan Bogdanovic either retired or the Nets just cut him.
Right. That was last season. Wow, it feels like a while ago.
It does feel like a while ago. They had that West Coast trip that they swept. They beat Sacramento or whatever. That was.
Yeah, they had some high points despite not really talented roster.
Yes.
But no, I agree with you. I think, that Keon Johnson plays with a certain confidence that you need in the NBA to be successful, especially when you're a little bit smaller. But he's got some bounce to his game. His 3-point shooting looked pretty decent last year at times, and there, he was the leading scorer for the Nets in a few games. Keon Johnson was. So I would lean toward Timmy and Keon Johnson over Jalen Wilson and Tyrese Martin.
That's not saying a ton. Nets leading scorer last year with Cam Thomas out 3/4 of the year, and you truly didn't have a threat there, if you will, down the stretch. Yes, I agree with what you said there on Tyrese Martin. Obviously, he showed flashes like everyone who's gotten up to this point in the NBA, and the potential to be a great 3-point shooter, just easily replaceable by what Drake Powell could be. And as a wing shooter for Powell, especially as a plus defender, and the number 22 overall pick in this draft, you're certainly going to want to see what you have out of Powell over a guy like Martin, who's NBA, I wouldn't say NBA career, but the time for him to develop is sort of shifting out the window here. And it's kind of funny because these guys aren't necessarily old. I say about Timmy, he's not a vet, but he sure as hell feels like one. He's only 23 years old. He just had that. He just a couple of years ago, he had that magical March Madness run with Gonzaga. Took him almost all the way. And the stash, oh my goodness, the stash will never be forgotten there. Probably, you look up March Madness in the dictionary, Drew Timmy should be front and center there. But he's a guy that just, I agree, walks around with a sort of, vet presence tagged on him, despite him not actually meeting the requirements. Quick note on Keon Johnson. I think that Jordy likes him. I'm not sure I like him enough to certainly stamp him as a roster, but I think he's probably going to make it as that well, 13th through 15th guy, a guy who's not going to get much run, but can certainly be a locker room guy. You're right, has a little bit of that bounce to his game, can add a little spice and flavor, if you will, onto the court at times for Jordy. And I think that's something he likes, especially in the effort department, no doubt. A guy that kind of reminds me of Jalen Wilson, Tyrese Martin, if you will. Someone who has shown flashes, but for this guy, it's been no time on the NBA court, and the injuries have killed one Dariq Whitehead, who it's make or break time for Dariq Whitehead. If it's not this year, it's never for me, Spen. Where do you stand on him? And do you prioritize getting him minutes, truly seeing what you have out of him? Or do you kind of call it quits already on his NBA career, which is just awful because of all the leg injuries and such?
Yeah, it's a great point. And Dariq Whitehead and Noah Clowney, this is kind of it for them as Nets, because the Nets have until October 31st to extend either of those guys through 2026, 2027. I think obviously
Oh,
they'll
really?
extend
October
Clowney.
it is?
That's what I've been told. That's what my sources say.
Clowney has to be the priority there.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, you're going to want to keep Clowney
Yes.
and have him and Timmy be your four. But for me, Dariq Whitehead, when you took him in, you already knew he was, or when you drafted him, you knew he was recovering from that significant leg injury at Duke. So you knew it was going to be an uphill battle to start, and he has just not gotten close to what he looked like prior to that injury. We've been tossing the word flashes a lot during this podcast. I haven't even really seen too many flashes from Dariq Whitehead. Like, I'll see him make a 3-pointer every now and again, or in garbage time he'll have 2 or 3 threes. But to me, his NBA career with the Nets, it's not going to come to fruition. Maybe he can find a role in another team. Maybe he can work his way back to the summer league in another organization or another system. But I just – at this point, with all the Nets draft picks and the guys that are on this roster, we haven't even brought up Terrence Mann, a guy that they traded for in the offseason.
Sure.
I don't think there's going to be enough room for a guy like Dariq Whitehead.
So you don't even have him making your roster.
No.
Wow. Okay. Well, a former 5-star recruit out of high school and one of the most highly sought after in terms of the college recruiting process. Dariq Whitehead, you heard it here first from Spen Harris. Not going to make the Nets roster, which would be a little bit shocking to me. I think the Nets are sort of forced into giving him one more chance just because, like, what the hell do you have to lose this year? It's a throwaway year regardless if he's bad. Honestly, and I I hate to say this, but anybody can play for the Brooklyn Nets. Like, obviously, that's not real. The Nets want the best roster they can have. The Nets are going to cut the guys that aren't NBA level. But if there's any team in the NBA this year to, let's say, take lower than low level chances, it's probably your Brooklyn Nets. So, just for that reason alone, I think Dariq Whitehead makes the team. I think the minutes situation is a whole other one that we can get into. But you guys in the chat have been extremely patient. So let's get into what you guys have to say. Smash like and hit subscribe. Take our boy King Ribby RM's advice if you haven't done so yet. Like, subscribe, and share. Helps us grow a ton. Hit up Spend Stuff. Both links are in the description for both his Twitter and his YouTube. So follow him, subscribe. But King, we appreciate you and your support right here on the show. And if you haven't done so yet, like, subscribe, and share. We're less than 50 subscribers away. Hard to believe, from 200. We are 451 last time I checked. And if we can hit that 500 mark, that's when monetization starts coming into effect. We can get channel memberships up and running. We can get super chats in. So guys, like this video, subscribe. If you're subscribed before, perfect. Liking does just as much, pushes it out to other viewers on the algorithm, helps grow our Nets community. So you guys are the best. Continue to show support right here on the show. We get into what you guys got to say. Quick shout outs, Leaf Diggy, BC, Awesome LA. You guys are the best for tuning in. Let's get into a couple questions. Giannis and Trey in Brooklyn is a pipe dream. I mean, yeah, if this actually came to fruition and that was the Nets team next year, like, I don't even know what to say. That's like, it seems so far-fetched from where we are right now, sitting here talking about a 20-win basketball team.
Yeah, I look, it's If it happens, I'd be pumped, but at the same time, it is a pipe dream. I don't think, like you said, Jordy's going to abandon the rebuild to do this. But if you were going to abandon it to do anything, I think this would make the most sense to do.
Uh, what do they say? Like, um, something about like go all in or go home. Go big or go home. There we go. If you're gonna if you're gonna commit to abandoning the rebuild for superstars, which I can't unrecommend more, you better fully commit to it. I don't want no, we'll sign Trey Young and approaching his 30-year-old season and we'll see how he fits into the net system. That's not how it works. Newsflash. I'm not sure Sean Marks knows that. Newsflash. Not how we're going to do this, okay? No bueno. You're either, I mean, Trey Young and Giannis seem so far fetched, but you're either doing that or nothing. It is all or nothing in terms of superstars, and I would really prefer it would be nothing. Sean Marks is more suited to be a GM than a scout, and then Claude later says makes a great point here. Sean Marks played for Popovich's Spurs, one of the probably one of the greatest coaches in NBA history. No ISO ball allowed, not a CT kind of system. Exactly, Claude. That's a great point. I didn't even think about him going back to his playing days or maybe his watching days. He didn't really contribute a ton to those Spurs teams. No shade, Sean Marks, but you didn't. But yes, this was a Spurs team and Greg Popovich. That was all about, let's play team basketball. And that's not kind of who Cam Thomas is. So I think that's a great point there, Claude.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I just don't think that CT and Marks have been the best fit in the world. And it looks like their relationship's coming to an end at the end of the season or even before the trade deadline.
Absolutely. King Ribby RM and a little bit and a series of scattered comments that I had to decode. If y'all get Giannis, Yegor's out the door. Don't know why we had to do that in 3 separate comments, but we did. Um, and I suppose you're talking about that as part of a trade package because it's definitely not his contract. His contract is cheap. It'll be a rookie deal. Even though it's on the higher side for rookies, the Nets needed somewhere to do with their cap money this year. But Spenny, is it, reasonable to say that if the Nets do team up for a pair of superstars that they can still keep some of this young core around?
I don't know about King Ribby RM's got a point. They probably want Jaeger. They probably want the eighth overall pick. They might
Yeah.
want Traore too. I mean,
They might
Giannis
want
is
next year's number 3 or
Giannis
top
is
3.
he's an NBA champion. He's an MVP. He's all of the above. He's a top 5 player every year.
Straight up, obviously Giannis, one of the best and most dominant to ever do it. Would you give up Yegor Giamin and your lottery pick next year for Giannis Antetokounmpo right now? Trae Young is a whole different story, but would you trade Yegor and your unprotected lottery pick in the 2026 draft that features stars like AJ DeBansta, Dylan Harper, and Darren Peterson? I know this is a tough one, Spenny, but look, this is a reality that Sean Marks could come to at a crossroads at some point. Would you fully abandon the rebuild if that's what Milwaukee called about?
I would say this: the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. So Giannis is the devil I know, and I know he's ridiculous. I don't know how good the number 3 pick's going to be next year or a top 3 pick. Give me the guy who's won a championship in the NBA, who's motivated, who wants to win at least one more. Yeah, I'd probably make the trade to go Giannis.
I think I would too. To me, at least, you're right. You never know what you're getting out of draft prospects. I think you know what you're getting out of Giannis Antetokounmpo, a MVP and NBA champion, and I think Finals MVP. Yeah, with that 51 to close it out in Game 6 there, the 2021 Finals, the Nets should have won it all. I will never retract that statement in my life, but um, you're absolutely right. Giannis is the certified NBA star, and look, as much as I want this rebuild to continue, that's too good of an offer to shut down there. We will take a quick 30-second break, come right back, hear a word from our presenting sponsor, Shoreline Sports Cards, and be right back here on the Nope, Just kidding. No, I do not have the video saved for some reason. We will not take a short break. Excuse me. But we'll get back into your questions. That is absolutely my bad. Spen, again, if you need to go at any point, feel free. Let's see. The Nets need a junkyard dog on the roster. They have too many of these finesse players. And then Jonathan comes in. Josh and Spen, has Sean Marks and Josiah worn out their welcome running this team for 10 years and accomplishing nothing significant? Star role guys, and now Cam wants out. Absolutely to me, Jonathan. I mean, I can't tell you about Josiah. It's his decision whether or not he wants to sell the team. That's not just a fireable role. But Sean Marks, surely, his time's coming to the end for me.
Yeah, I think in any other situation, Sean Marks would have been let go prior to this season. I think that him and Josiah have a really strong relationship, and Sean Marks, for whatever reason, has been able to keep and save his job year in, year out, making mistakes. And I think that at this point, for me, if this Nets team isn't competitive in the next 3 years, I'm going to give Marks until a season after next season. Then he has to be let go. And Josiah can't make any more excuses. It can't be, well, you think about the Kyrie stuff and the vaccine and Durant, the foot on the line, and Harden and the hamstring. You can't have any of these excuses. Right. If Marks isn't able to make the Nets a contender in the next 2 to 3 years, this entire organization needs to shift and find a new voice.
Absolutely. And I think, to me, I said Sean Marks' job rides on the Egor Demin pick, and it sure as heck relies maybe even less so on the pick. But, I mean, like, for example, the last, maybe I would exclude the Zachary Reese-Sachet pick, but the last fill in the number of drafts, first overall pick's been obvious. So you put a lot on Egor Demin, and you put a lot on where the Nets end up. And I know it's a draft lottery, so nothing's guaranteed, but I'll be blunt with you. If the Nets don't get a top 3 pick, I don't care how many games they win. This season is a complete and utter failure. And you set the rebuild back not only another year, but maybe even have even more repercussions down the line. Should you add just another one of these, all right, above average guys like you added in the late first round with some of your picks this year. So Sean Marks, maybe even more so than making the selection, needs to set the Nets up for success in the draft lottery. We will get to a couple more of your questions. Smash like and hit subscribe if you haven't done so yet. A comment from Jonathan. Here we go. Do you guys expect an Andre Drummond or Kelly Oubre salary dump from Philly to Brooklyn to occur so the Nets can get over the minimum salary floor? I think if they don't get over the minimum, the money just starts getting distributed to the guys on the roster. Correct, Spenny? But I know the Nets are still below the minimum despite the Zaire signing being official and despite the qualifying offer.
Yeah, Andre Drummond from a roster perspective wouldn't make sense. You already have Claxton, Day'Ron.
You'd probably have to buy him out. I don't think
right. You have to buy him out.
Andre Drummond fits on this roster, but you also wouldn't hate to buy him out.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know what the salary cap looks like right now, but yeah, if the Nets can eat up a contract and just to get over the minimum salary floor, I'm sure Sean Marks will do it.
Let's see. If a team doesn't reach the NBA salary floor by the start of the regular season, it forfeits its share in the end of season luxury tax revenue, and a portion of its cap becomes frozen. Got it. So that's just a little fun fact for you there. But also in terms of this trade, you're also adding, you probably add a handful of second-round picks like you did in the Haywood Highsmith trade. But to me, again, another thing I've already said on this show, you can compile as many second-round picks as you want, Spenny, but eventually you got to do something with those. And whatever, make trades for Haywood Highsmith. I don't care. At the end of the day, I don't care. Am I going to remember in 5 years when the Nets are a contending team whether or not they traded for Haywood Highsmith? I don't think so. So you don't want to do things here. Sean Marks, finds a diamond in the rough, like a Nikola Jokic, like a Luka Doncic, one of these, I guess not so much Luka Doncic. He was a lottery pick, but a Nikola Jokic second rounder who was drafted during a Taco Bell ad. You find a diamond in the rough like that, um, or probably some guys that aren't going to make the team, or you compile a boatload of these seconds and trade up for a mid first round pick. But you got to do something. I'm tired of just acquiring first round picks and then they amount to nothing. That doesn't mean anything to me, Sean Marks. How about you start doing some stuff with these?
Yeah. 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 No, I'm tired of getting all these picks just to trade him for more picks, just to trade him for a guy like Highsmith, and then you trade Highsmith to get more picks. Like, I'm with you. All right.
It's a second round pick carousel at this point.
Right. Right.
Last couple here. Sean Marks has a million cat lives, amen, Jonathan, but not being able to get Cam Thomas under some sort of contract in a rebuild setting and being a 10-year GM is embarrassing. Marks is just a bad negotiator. Spenny, I'll go to you here. Was Sean Marks in the right for sort of holding his ground and saying you can either accept our contract or we want to be done with you? We don't love you as a player. At least Sean Marks does not. Not sure if that reflects how the entire front office thinks, but Sean Marks doesn't love you as a player. You can either accept his deal or not. He's not going to take it personally. He's kind of done with you regardless. Or do you think the Nets should have went aggressive, probably overpaid for him considering there's no market from outside teams looking to swoop in and make a play for Cam Thomas because genuinely the Nets were the only team in the league with cap space to sign him. And if another team lowballed Cam Thomas, boom, bam, bop, the Nets match it and he's back in Brooklyn regardless. So there's basically no way that Cam Thomas gets snatched from the outside world unless an immediate sign-in trade. Do you like the way the Nets handled this? Do you wish they had actually paid him and kept him around long term, or is the qualifying offer and moving on next season good enough?
Yeah, as critical as we've been about Sean Marks on this show, I actually think he played this right.
Okay.
You don't just pay someone just to pay them,
Yeah.
despite them kind of overachieving in their brief tenure. And if Sean Marks firmly believes that Cam Thomas isn't part of the future of this Nets organization, then you're not going to give him a big contract. And I just think the way that the style in which Cam Thomas plays basketball, I don't think it meshes with what Brooklyn and Jordy Fernandez are trying to build. And as was it Jonathan or Claude Smith or someone talked about, Sean Marks hating ISO ball. We saw that from KD and Kyrie and Harden. And I think at this point, they're trying to get as far away from ISO ball as possible. So yeah, I was kind of with Sean Marks on this. Like I don't think he's had the best run as a general manager for the Nets, but I think this made sense. Like let him prove it. Maybe you're able to rekindle the relationship and you give him a huge contract after this year. Probably not. But to overpay for a guy who you're not confident on and sold can be part of the future of this organization. Yeah, I agreed with that decision.
I can't possibly see a way in which this Nets team convinces Cam Thomas, oh, we're the great guys. Come on back. We didn't mean what we said last offseason. In why we're disrespecting you with our salary. But yeah, no. Doors open, please. Welcome in. You're a Brooklyn Net. I can't possibly see it going down. But we got a couple chatters. Jonathan and Claude, you guys are the best tuning in night in, night out. Spen Harris, my friend, it has been an awesome episode with you talking Nets right here live on the Brooklyn Boys Show. If you haven't done so, like and subscribe. If you haven't done so, hit up Spen's channel and hit up his Instagram. But Spen, I appreciate you sparing some time. You're the best, my friend. And despite a little bit of late start, tell everyone where they can find you. And man, I can't thank you enough for joining us right here on the show.
Of course. Listen, I love being on. Always happy to chop it up and talk Nets. Shout out to the Brooklyn Boys, one of the realest Nets podcasts out there.
Appreciate it.
If you want to follow me on X at Spen Harris and on YouTube, you can find me Spenny in the Nets. But yeah, really just appreciate being on and this show is going to do big things.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. You're the best. Hope that we can get you on the show here coming up at some point in the future and have you on as a recurring guest. So Spen Harris, my friend, you are the best. If you're listening to the show now after the fact, smash the like and hit subscribe if you haven't done so yet. pardon my language. We talked all things Egor Demin, broke down his rookie year expectations on an extremely fun Brooklyn Nets episode. I am Josh Woolever, the host of the Brooklyn Boys Show. That is our special guest and Awesome Nets creator, Spen Harris, for the Brooklyn Boys Show on a Wednesday, September edition. We are signing off saying good night, everyone, and let's go Nets. See you all later.